Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio. We are the podcast for the prepared, the radio for the ready-minded, if you will. And we're excited to be here. We're going to talk to you guys tonight about a topic that is, you might say near and dear to our hearts, or you could say overwhelmingly, frustratingly too close to our minds. We're going to be talking about Psyops tonight. And want to remind you guys, of course, we are all nutrient deficient. Welcome to the state of the world. Before we get into our topic, I want to remind you guys, check out our website, preppertalkradio.com. Head on over to where it says Good Life and check out. We've got some links to the highest quality nutritional supplements out there and a really cool side hustle that we've been doing for 6 months now. And honestly, it has been so good. It's completely changed my financial situation. And I'm carrying the weight of the team with us. It is so freaking fun. But that is not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about the worst of the worst of what's going on in the world, the continued onslaught of Psyops everywhere. Now, before we jump into it, let's see how the guys are doing. What's happening, guys?
Well, it's not loading for me on my YouTube over here, so I think some people are going to be having issues tonight. So, but it sounds like everybody else is. Well, the others are able to load it. Yours is working there, Scott.
Mine's working great. I've also got it pulled up on Facebook, so you guys could be watching from Facebook or YouTube. Both have the engagement open. The chat is live, so feel free to join on either one. And with YouTube being funky right now, they just don't want us talking about this. Apparently, they are scared.
Well, it seems like this is a regular theme.
There's a psyop to our psyop.
You could say it's a nesting doll psyop. Psyop within a psyop within a psyop.
Russian nesting dolls.
Russian nesting dolls. Well, guys, we're not going to have a live next week. Just want to give everybody a heads up. We'll be doing out of town on vacay. We'll be back the week following with a new fun and exciting topic for next week. But holy crap, once you start digging into these psyops, you see them everywhere.
And that's really the idea, right, is to have your eyes opened. If you can identify one, it's a lot easier to then see what's coming at you, because when I was preparing for this, the thought that came to my mind is Princess Bride. You know, the scene where Prince Humperdinck, they're trying to track down the princess, and the six-fingered man asked him, "Could this be a trap?" He says, "I think everything's a trap. That's why I'm still alive." And so that was my first strange thought. It's like, wow, these are all traps. Everything is a trap, and beware. So if we can help you guys see, and we've said this, I think, many times, is once your eyes are opened and you can begin to see, nothing looks good. I mean, everything looks bleak. And that's kind of what I was saying, is the recurrent theme is doom and gloom on our podcast. It seems like every week, but that's all I can see, I guess, right? I can't see the positive side.
Well, once you know what the enemy is doing, I believe it goes back to, I think it was Sun Tzu who said in The Art of War, you can't defeat the enemy you don't know anything about. And so I feel like it's very important for us to know about the enemy, whether that enemy is a spiritual enemy or that enemy is a physical enemy. It's very important to know your enemy and how they work and what kind of operations they go into. In fact, one of the interesting things about I believe it's in Corinthians. I believe it's I can't remember. It's middle of the book. It talks about the spiritual gifts, and one of the spiritual gifts is the diversity of operations. Well, what the heck does that mean? It basically means how things operate, spiritually, physically, and what kind of how spiritually things affect our physical world. And so there's a lot to it. There's a lot more to it than what I just shared, but psychological operations are very powerful. If you can defeat somebody mentally or emotionally, you don't ever have to raise the sword. I think it was years ago that there was a KGB officer that came. They were he defected, and they were talking about all the things that they were going to do to put the American people under subjugation. But he said, we don't even need to lift a finger, because we're going to do it all through psychology and all through psychological warfare, which is psychological operations. And so psyops are some of the best ways to mind control your enemy, or get your enemy to do something that psychology has always intrigued me. And one of the things that I think is awesome, I'm reading a book right now, and in that book it says you can't make people do things, but you can influence them. And I was like, ooh, so that's what psychological operations are supposed to do. They're not going to make us do it, but they're going to influence us such that we think it's our idea, and we're going to do it only to fall right into the trap.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I consider social media to be a psychological operation.
Mm-hmm.
And the only time I really touch social media is here for you guys, right? For the channel, for our page, for sharing information, and not necessarily sharing personal, family, those types of things, right? This is for the group, for the podcast, and that's really the only time I touch social media. But I believe that is one of the biggest psyops of our day. I mean, there are so many big ones. I say that, and I had a few others come to my mind that are enormous psyops. But social media absolutely was created as a social experiment and a way to manipulate.
So let's talk about that for a second. So psyop is a psychological operation, or a non-combat, whether it's through communication, emotion, attitude, behavioral targeting, a non-combat method to push an outcome. And there's 3 different levels that I found. There's white, gray, and black psyops. Examples of a white psyop, right? These are ones that the government's doing. But white ones are like when leaflets are dropped, flyers, radio, television, when you hear it all the time, right? There's recognition points where you're like, I feel like I'm getting the same message all day long, no matter what channel I turn to, right? That's an example. Then there's the gray, which are the secret government operations. Those are including, especially on social media, all those bot influencers, right? Where it's like, hey, how is this person posting 136 posts a day? The average person's posting 3 or 4 posts a day. Why is this so much higher? Or in some cases, you can do the math, go over the profile and see, but there are thousands and thousands and thousands of these being run all the time by bots, computers, by individuals. There's also things in the gray world. For example, in the 1950s, the CIA did one and it was done in the Philippines. I don't know if you guys heard about this. During that time, there was a push to go to bring communism to the Philippines. CIA countered that with a psyop, and this is public knowledge now, but they were using fake vampire attacks and telling the people through the radio and through different leaflets and different things that there are vampires and they love to eat the blood of communists. And so when they do nighttime operations, they would capture people who they thought communists. If those people ended up dying in the process, they'd hang them upside down, puncture their neck twice, and let them bleed out. And then they'd do symbols on all the buildings to let people know these were vampires. That's disgusting. But that's something that happened by our friends over at the CIA. Thank you very much for that one, Psycho. Another example of gray ops would be, like we started talking about the social media bots. There's a ton of them by Israel and there's a ton of them by China. They push narratives, try to gain sentiment, but they're working always for foreign influence. Then we have the black ops, the ones we don't hear about, the ones that are hidden. And thanks to Edward Snowden, he was able to push documents that weren't supposed to be released for another 10 to 15 years. But we heard about one that's the World of Warcraft psyop. Did you guys know about this?
I think
you just told me about it right before the show, bro, but I hadn't heard of it before that.
So I used to play this game, so I'm like, I'm not at all surprised. But they'd have agents logging in all across, because this is the largest gaming platform at the time, all across the world, logging in, infiltrating groups, raid parties, and things like that to influence, to create coordinated efforts, to recruit, to crowdfund, and to create dissension into tribal factions on different political targets, situations, and everything else. It would still be going on. I'm sure it is still going on somewhere, but it would still be going on if it had not been leaked and they shut it down. That's one example of a black op. Like, nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows it's active, but it's happening. So we have the white, the gray, and the black. Now that we have the foundation, let's talk about what's really going on in the world, shall we? Because you're getting inundated all the time. What is the greatest example of a psyop that's happened to us in the last 5 years?
Yeah, where to start is the question. I threw out social media. I've got a list of others.
One of there's the huge psyop in 2020. I think that's a huge psyop where they use almost every major key to a psyop in that, where it's a public outbreak. They fear of death, fear of missing out, fear of not being included, fear of hurting other people. If you don't get this, then you will be the cause of other people dying. Then it was, all of the experts. So the appeal to authority, all the experts come out, and then it's like, we normally, in order to create something like this, it takes years, but we were able to do it in this other thing. And, it must be a miracle. So now we're appealing to the spiritual side of things. Everybody wants to believe in a miracle and wants to believe that God had some hand in it. And so I'm just like, okay, they used almost, and then it was like, if you don't do this now, then it was fear of, okay, now you're not going to get to work. Now we're going to knock on your door and we're going to drag you out in the street and we're going to do it to you there, in the middle of the street. And so it was like, okay, well, we better get our, we better fortify our front doors. So it was, I would say it was just about every tactic that you could pull out of your, where these guys used to get us all to subject ourselves to this ridiculous thing that ended up being a complete lie. It wasn't that they didn't tell us the truth. It was they outright lied, and now it's completely obvious. And how many people have actually died and suffered because of that? So I'm not using particular words so that YouTube doesn't shut us down, obviously, but I think that's a huge example, especially in the last 5 years, Scott. If you wanted to, and I'm sure there's others. Like, I know there's others.
Well, as part of that, it was appealing to our emotions, and that's one of the first things that we should notice in a psyop is it grabs you by the feels, right? It calls you names, right? It's called an ad hominem attack. So if you're not convinced by their data, right, by their information, they want to make fun of you. They want to make you feel bad, and it is a very social experiment. And that's definitely one of the first things is, okay, how does this make me feel? If it's something you can shrug off, well, you probably should, but that's one of the key points to recognize.
Yeah, you brought up the logical fallacies. So in high school debate, we talked about this and all the time. What are the different logical fallacies? There's the ad hominem, right? Attacking the person, making the argument against the person or a behavior instead of the actual facts. Red herring, irrelevant topics to divert attention, right? Appeal to ignorance. Claims of it being true because there's no evidence to disprove it, right? Making up something that can't be disproven yet, or there's not enough data yet, right? Straw man, which misrepresenting an opponent's argument to make it easier to attack. Then there's hasty generalization, slippery slopes, false analogies. Like, it goes on and on and on and on. And if you guys are all like, we're all on YouTube, I know we are. If you guys are on YouTube at all, one of my favorite channels about this specifically is Chase Hughes, former naval intelligence officer. He created the NCI engineered reality scoring system. It has a sheet of 20 different things, categories with questions to ask, how to score it. And he goes deep. Like, Timing. Does the timing feel suspicious or coincidental with other events?
Mhm.
Is the story like about, for an example, a story about water contamination surfaces during a corporate scandal, right? It's a misdirection. It's let's get you focused on something else, right?
Mhm.
Emotional manipulation, which is what you were just about, you started talking about, Shane, right? Does it provoke fear, outrage, or guilt without any solid evidence? Uniform messaging. I think we've all seen the videos online where it's the newscaster saying the same thing at
Mhm.
every station worldwide.
Yeah,
Same
Project
script, right?
Mockingbird.
Yeah. Missing information. There's no alternative views. There's no critical details. Everything's being excluded. That's counter to their argument, right? Simplistic narratives. And I could go on and on this list, but like I'm just giving you guys the tip of the sword so you can actually do the work. But they'll create false dilemmas to make it so, and use this appeal to authority to make you go, well, the doctor said, so I have to believe what the doctor said, right?
Yeah.
They're called doctors because it's part of the indoctrination process. They've reached the highest level of indoctrination. They're the easiest to control. Why? Because they'll lose everything if they go against what they're told.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
That's what I was saying.
you
Jordan
call
Peterson is an example of that.
I was just going to say they call their practice a practice because they're practicing.
Instead
Yeah.
of professionally, right?
I don't. That's
A
just another
profession.
one of those. That's it. To me. That's another little psyop. It's like a mini psyop out there. It's like, they tell us that, for example, one of the things in my business that I love to just kind of pick on is they tell you, oh, if you spend $100 with us, we'll give you 10% off. But if you spend $200, we'll give you 20% off. So everybody's like, oh, I better spend $200. It's more savings. It's not more savings. You just spent more money.
Mhm.
And so that to
Yeah.
me is like a mini psyop. Is that
Well-
it's a psychological kind of getting you, it's manipulation.
Yeah. Well, the words that we use that we are taught, like the word save, right? Like you say, I'm going to save 20%. No, you're not. You're going to spend 20% less, but you're not saving anything. So it's just the use of that word save is incorrect,
Yeah.
right?
So they're
You're not actually
redefining
saving
words like
anything,
that.
but it makes you feel good. I mean, it does make us feel good to save some money, right? But it's not in your bank account. It's just
Mhm.
you're spending less. So you choose your words correctly, choose them well, right?
And when other people use words against you, know what they're really meaning. Don't fall for the stuff.
That
You know what
is
I mean?
far more complex, yes, and requires some searching. But along the same lines you were talking there, Scott, is that what comes to mind is the left-right paradigm, right? That is
Yes.
an enormous psyop, and that's exactly along the same lines you were talking. Is that we're only given two choices: the left or the right, Republicans, Democrats. There are so many other parties, but they are not an actual choice because they will never be elected into office. Right there, there's that we talk about. Excuse me, should have brought some water. We talk about the two wings on the same bird, two sides of the same coin. That's
Mhm.
what's presented to us, given to us to choose from. So they're already directing our choices, and that is an absolute enormous psychological operation. They're putting us against each other, right? They're trying to get us to fight amongst ourselves.
What's interesting is I was watching I think Dinesh D'Souza was doing an interview with a guy who was a huge leader in the Islam. I think it was Islam. I may need to be careful what I say moving forward here, but he was telling us that there are certain people in Congress that have certain religious views that they would never do those things themselves, but they are promoting those things into the American population because they want the Americans to fail, weaken, and become less, so that they can now have other organizations come in and take over. And we see several Congress people right now, people actually senators, House representatives, I can't remember who, but they have religious ties, as you can see by the clothing that they wear. They have religious ties to a certain group, and they are promoting certain things like the unaliving of babies before they're born and other things like that. They're promoting a lot of these narratives of left-right paradigm of hate speech, if you will, that, hey, this no kings. They're really working diligently. They would never do these things in their own life, in their own religious views. They would never do those things, but they promote it because they want to weaken the American people to the point where the American people are doing it, and then they're more easily controlled and more easily put under their power.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention, Charlie Kirk real quick. I don't want to talk about it. I just wanted to mention that I saw that mostly as a distraction. From what, I can't exactly say, but those type of events, when I can't necessarily see the purpose, right? Okay, what is the immediate direct purpose of this psyop? It's likely just a distraction from something else that's going on. So that's something that I'm working on my skills to try and identify something like that when it happens, whether it's small or large, like Charlie. That, okay, what else is going on in the world that this is distracting us from?
On that, yeah, even on the same day necessarily.
Yeah.
And one thing that I just want to reiterate, because I agree with you, Shane. However, I also want to just reiterate that God takes a mess and makes a message. So even if the enemy was working that whole process as a psychological operation to control the minds of the people, God, I believe, also stirred within a lot of people an awakening to a reality of what's really going on in the world. Not necessarily the exact details, but like, wait a minute, there's something going on in the world and we need to be waking up to it. And so I believe that even if the enemy of whether it's the spiritual or the physical enemies, that frankly they're both, are doing something to perform a psychological operation, God, there's no surprises to God. Whatever the devil and his kingdom do, he already knows they're going to do it. And so he will take what they do and he will use that. If we're discerning, he will use that to teach us a lesson and help us to overcome it, one, and two, give us the motivation to get up and get after it and build light in the world and create, I hate to say this, but I think, the enemy uses psychological operations and psyops, but Heavenly Father and Jesus, they use psychology to help us as well. So, it's just, to me, it's God always takes the mess of the world and makes a message out of it. And those that are listening and have eyes to see and ears to hear can be motivated forward on it. So that's my thought.
Pop quiz time. You brought me right to the place where we need to be. So before we jump into the pop quiz, I want to remind you guys, if you are feeling hungry in the apocalypse and you want some meats, right? Arby's won't exist anymore. You need to have some tasty, delicious, shelf-stable, fully cooked, delicious meats. They got beef, roast beef, so ground beef, roast beef, and roast chicken. Cooked in the cans, good for 25 years. Go over to our friends, survivalfrog.com. Use the code PrepperTalk10 to save 10% on checkout. And they got a whole bunch of other cool stuff that is there as well. But guys, here's a question. What is the most powerful way to begin breaking someone's mental conditions? And I'll let you choose. It's multiple choice. So what is the most powerful way to begin breaking someone's mental conditioning? Is it 1, exposing their lies, 2, give them new beliefs, 3, destroy certainty, or 4, offer guidance?
I would say guidance, probably.
I'm going to go with destroy certainty.
The answer is destroy certainty. If you can destroy the foundation of their arguments, their belief system, that will push them into a questioning mindset. In a questioning mindset, you now are open to find out the truth. Every one of us watching this, every one of us that's listening to this, at some point, the certainty of our world was destroyed. That's why we're preppers. That's why we're awake to these things. That's why we're paying attention. So congratulations for having an open mind to be able to start seeing and reading between the lines.
Well, I think that's really important because we all talk to a lot of people, and a lot of the times I just, will show up, what we call show up and throw up, right? Let me tell you about everything that's going on that you got to be worried about, right? Whereas if you can see that approach of destroying their certainty in that belief of theirs, like then they can start to question and then see the other side. So I think that's a great clue.
Okay, here's
What?
question number 2.
Well, I just was real fast. I was going to say that the reason why you can, in any kind of psychology, you break down the current belief so that you can rebuild a new one, and that's the military does that in boot camp. They break you down to build you up, and if you're doing it with the right, if you're doing it with pure intent or good intent, it's actually influence and persuasion. If you're doing it with malintent, it's manipulation,
Yes.
and it's the same set of skills to do it, to do good and persuade others is the same set of skills that you can use for manipulation. It's just to what intent, to what end are you using them? That's my opinion anyways.
Speaking of manipulation, the easiest people to manipulate are those who, now we got 4 options, are 1, feel powerless, 2, think they're immune to manipulation, 3, are emotionally unstable, or 4, are desperate for approval.
Let's see what the people answer on that before we jump in. Read those out again, dude.
1, 2, 3, or 4.
You guys can drop this 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the comments. The easiest people to manipulate are those who, 1, feel powerless, 2, think they're immune to manipulation, 3, are emotionally unstable, or 4, are desperate for approval.
Well, I would hate for it to be number 2 because that's me, right?
That's where that's my first impression is number 2. Although number 4 is a close second, if not.
So the answer is definitely number 2. They think they're immune to the manipulation because that thought process makes you think you're too smart or too aware to be manipulated. They stop scanning for influences. They stop checking for the truths, right? They stop looking at the data to determine, is this a lie or is this true, right?
Yeah.
They're just like, no, I know already.
They think they already know.
This is right. They make up their mind before they test anything. That's why it's so important. Test everything. Trust, but verify, right? And if you don't trust the source, don't trust and verify, right? Okay, so Psyops. Let's dig into this. Is a fun topic because this can really go anywhere. What are some things we can do on the daily to help make sure we're avoiding falling into these traps?
Well, let me define a couple more things because I think that was a great question, Scott. I want to just throw a few more things out there. Like one thing that we've heard a lot about recently is gaslighting. So I think that gaslighting is an absolute technique or tactic of psychological operation. You know, getting somebody to think that what they believe is not true, which is breaking down their belief, which is the first part of that first question we talked about. So if you got to be careful about when you see kind of that, if you feel like you're being gaslighted, you probably are. And that's a key. The other part is that I was going to talk about is the Hegelian dialectic, which is the idea that they control both sides. So you might think to yourself, well, wait a minute. And this goes to the second question, I think, where because I already know everything because I'm on the side of the good. Well, maybe you're not. Maybe you're in a controlled opposition. And there's this truther that's out there and says, oh, I'm going to reveal, like, no offense, because I think that there's a little bit of that with the QAnon thing, but maybe a lot of that. We'll see. But there might be a little bit of like, wait a minute, who's telling the story here and who's really behind it and what's the agenda? And is it really giving us the truth that we think it's giving us, or is it leading us to a path where we'll be right in the ambush spot, the kill box? And so just remember that, especially during a lot of wars if you go back in history of different wars, the Rothschilds would fund both sides because they knew that they would make money on no matter which one they funded. And so they would fund both sides knowing that there was some kind of potential psychological operation there that they could manipulate. And no matter who won, they won because they were invested in both sides. So just remember that sometimes the people we think might be our side might be manipulated, and they don't even always know it. The Hegelian dialectic, people who are control opposition, sometimes they don't know. And so it's not their fault if they're saying stuff that's a little bit off. But just be careful about those. I think those two things, gaslighting and the Hegelian dialectic, will help us kind of get us to where we can recognize, what's going on here, and then help us to be able to overcome it, and then answer your question, Scott. So that's what I was thinking.
The last time you said it, you said gaslighting. I think that's a totally different problem.
Sorry.
We knew what you were talking about. We knew what you meant.
But my buddy JR talks about that one all the time. I think he's in the chat. But
gaslighting is what we do when we're camping and we want to get warm.
when you crack open a can of this, I don't know. Anyways, okay. Shane, go take it away.
I think the other thing I was going to pull up is, and there was a comment here, is AI. And I have not changed my position on AI. I think it is nothing good will come from it. That it is. This is really a deep topic. I think AI is being recognized now that it's in a bubble. That there are no profits currently. So many dollars, currency has been sunk into it. It is being touted that it can solve all our problems, that it's going to be amazing. But there is a small chance that it could wipe us all out, right? But, never mind that. And so there is just so much attention on this right now. It really is mind-boggling. So I can't help but think that it is a type of psychological operation to, again, kind of the white coat, the authority, looking to authority, looking to someone who's wiser than us, dumbing us down so that we don't think about, come up with answers ourselves, or actually reach to a higher authority, and not AI as a higher authority, as God as the higher authority. And I'm sticking to that. I don't see that as it changing at all.
So it's funny that you brought that up, because there's an interview with Sam Altman, the guy that created OpenAI, and they're like, "Do you think AI will take over and that we'll be in trouble?" And he's like, "No. I think there's 3 scenarios." And I'm like, "Oh, here we go. Number one, misuse by bad actors, right? Somebody could access too much information and then ruin the world that way, right? That's one. 2, lose control of the AI and be locked out of all of our systems. How is that any different than what they actually asked him? It's just being said in a different way. Or 3, unintended societal consequences, economic destruction, right? System destruction, singularity. Like it. I'm like, you just said it's not those, but now you're saying it is those. Yeah, Psyop. Yeah, 100%. I think it's used just like the bots on social media to create narratives, to create thought process, right? What is the biggest thing we hear about AI all the time? Oh, if you don't get involved, you're not going to have a job in 9 months to a year. If you don't learn,
going to cure cancers. And that's kind of the biggest positive I hear from people. Well, it's going to help us with our healthcare, and again, I have arguments against that as well. But
it's funny because like I saw a report. This guy was talking about the problem with AI data is that AI data doesn't exist. He did this thing where he studied the answers and then asked for the verification and the proof of data. AI would be like, "Oh yeah, 80% of a study found that 80% of this happened all the time." Blah blah blah. Okay, what's the study? Well, there actually isn't a study. Excuse me?
Yeah, he just made it up.
Yeah. AI's all like, "I'm a false authority over here, so I can say whatever I want, and they're just going to believe it."
Yeah. Yeah, and right now you can call AI on it. You can say, "Okay, yeah, what was your source?" "Oh, I don't have a source. I just kind of made that up." But I think we'll get to the point when it will not be doing that any longer, right? It'll say, "No, this is the answer. Yep. I am the smartest. I'm the best."
That's what they call AI-driven fraud.
Well, the idea that
fraud crisis and data crisis created by AI to validate AI's self.
That's what they like to do. They like to validate their own BS.
Paris looks like he's ready to fall asleep, according to Field Tech.
Okay, sounds good. Maybe I am. Another thing that I was listening to another podcast with Luke Belmar, and he's got some smarts on in his noggin. He actually said that if you think what we have for AI is the good stuff, he says we have the breadcrumbs, we have the leftovers. What they really are running in the quantum computers and deep underground military bases or whatever, the AI they're running is beyond anything that we have access to as regular citizens. So, and I totally agree with that based on what I know and how these guys run their stuff. But it's just crazy to me that if AI that we have like ChatGPT or others is cranking out the stuff that it is, and that's the breadcrumbs, that's the leftovers. You imagine what they're running back behind the scenes, and imagine that the psychological operations they're going to run, because they can run algorithms, they can run the elite or whoever they are, they can put into their system, say, these are the different psychological operations we want to run. These are the outcomes. This is what we want to do. Which one will be the most effective? Click. And those AIs run those scenarios for them. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, let's do this one first, this one second, this one third. You know what I mean? And I believe that's legit. Like we're gonna start seeing some of that stuff. One of the other things that's a huge psychological operation, in my opinion, is especially not just in the recent past, but over the last several decades, is the idea that pharmaceuticals are here to help cure disease. That's the biggest psyop too. None of these things are here to cure disease. They're here to maintain the disease, or give us. They're here to cover the symptoms so that we feel like we don't have the disease,
and you can never get off of that drug.
Exactly. So it's the cure to all these things. It's super funny. I'm sure everyone's seen the memes where they're like the pilots in the cockpit of the plane, like a commercial airplane, and somebody comes in and says, "Oh, did you hear that the person who invented saltwater engines is on the flight? It's so cool. We're going to be able to see, fly them to the new place." And then the pilots are like the next scene is the pilots getting off the plane. Like, we are not going to be on a plane with the guy who invented saltwater engines, because that guy's going to be killed on this flight and we don't want to be part of it. You know what I mean? I just thought that was that's another psychological operation. All these, we can't, I don't even want to get into going to the moon, but we got all these different crazy things that we're told that we're like, nah, it's really not that thing there.
Possibly the biggest psyop ever perpetrated is the moon landing. Yeah.
Well, and the NASA pilot that just recently had a press conference that said we're about to go to the moon for the first time. We're about to go to outer space for the first time.
Actually put men on the moon. Yeah.
Yeah. For the first time.
Wait, what?
You didn't see this news brief?
Yeah, I've seen it.
I think 2 weeks ago. But like going to it, like here's some things you can use to help identify psyops, right? Have you guys heard of the FATE model?
FATE, I have not.
No.
So FATE stands for focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. So focus, does it hijack your attention? Is there 24/7 media coverage? Is the repetition through the roof, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it unprecedented, right? Those are things to watch for. If it's stealing your focus and it's doing any of those things, identify it as high priority, not priority, high probability. Thank you, of engineered, right, or psyop. Model, authority, trusted figures, expert panelists, discrediting all opposing views. Watch for those things. Tribe. We talked about this earlier. The left versus the right, right? Polarized messages, focused on in groups. Are they patriots? Are they traitors? Are they Antifa?
Are they fascists?
Are they fascists? Are they racist? Like, right? Name calling, all those ad hominems. And then the last one is emotion. Is it immediately sparking fear, outrage, frustration when you hear the messaging, when you see what's going on? and you feel those things without actual evidence.
What's interesting is I was watching a conservative who was out amongst liberals, and she asked the question. She said, "So have you seen the Sydney Sweeney ad?" And the person was like, "Oh yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible." Okay, So tell me why is it horrible? Like, what's it horrible? And the liberal was like, it's just so emotional. I just can't. I just, like, dude, you've been manipulated, bro. Like, you can't come up with facts and figures. Everything she like did this whole performance where her whole body was like shaking, and she's like, it was just such a horrible thing to my psyche and my whole. It wasn't a safe place for. It's like, oh my gosh, that's a perfect example to me of what Scott just said.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love this field chat.
Go
The moment I hear someone is an expert, I click away, right?
Yep.
He and I actually were on the phone a few nights ago talking about that very thing. Because a lot of people are like, oh, Scott, you're an expert and you know all these things. I'm like, no, I'm an enthusiast. I am the biggest prepping enthusiast. Like we talked about cannabis earlier. We're like, Prepper Talk Radio is the gateway to hardcore prepping. Like we get you excited. We get you a little bit buzzed about it. We get you amped and ready to go. We're the joyful, let's dig into this before it gets too bad, right? We're the spark to ignite you. But are we the experts? No, but we will bring a lot of things to light so that you can do your research. Because if you don't do your research, you deserve to be misled. Let's be honest.
Yeah, you got to learn for yourself. I mean, you can trust us. We're trying to be honest. We're trying to, but yeah, maybe I'm just reading the headlines, right? And then trying to speak intelligently about that on something in particular. So yeah, don't trust me. Do your own research and dig in. And we all have our own biases, right? And we tend to listen to and look for the things that confirm our biases, right? Mm-hmm. And it's hard to do otherwise. Yeah. I cannot stay interested in a Democrat speaking about the economy, right? That's about as bad as it gets, right? But
that's an oxymoron.
Exactly. Yeah. So I see exactly what you mean, but it is very difficult to do, and to recognize in yourself that I'm going to listen to the other side while I hold a bag around my mouth and try and hold it back, try and not vomit, right? And listen to things that I can't possibly stand. And maybe that's not the right approach, but something more technical, like the economy, right? Why is it good? Why is it bad? Why did these people say the economy is the best economy ever? But over here, people are losing their jobs, right? I mean, that's just one of many examples. But
I think
kind of maybe
Shane, no, I was just going to say on a macro level, you're exactly right. Like in the news media, in the talking points in headlines, but when you're talking to your next door neighbor, like I feel like somebody, if there's one of the Stoic quotes, and I think it was Seneca, I can't remember exactly who said it, but there was something along the lines of if somebody who can listen to an opposing point of view and still be able to cordially interact with that person, that's strength. And so if I'm talking to my next door neighbor and they have an opposing view, I'm not going to go crazy and barf on them. I'm going to basically say, okay, let's talk about it. Maybe there is some validity to parts of your argument. So let's have a discussion. And so if it's your next door neighbor, if it's somebody that you're in a personal relationship with, I would say we need the dialogue. We need to have that conversation. But if it's a talking point senator coming out on MSM, CNN or something, they're just regurgitating what they've been told to say. Oh yeah, dude, shut that off, or you know what I mean? Like that's where you can repost that and have your own commentary as a social media post of your own. So I just wanted to kind of help clarify a little bit of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I got to pull a comment back up that you shared. So Shane posted this. Step 1. Thank you, J.R. Roberts, for this. Step 1, Prepper Talk Radio. Step 2, Glenn Beck Tears. I'm like, no. Step 2, whoops. Did you click that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, step 2, right? Step 1 is Prepper Talk Radio. Step 2 through step 9 are whichever path you choose to follow. Step 10 probably, inevitably, for everyone will be radical isolation in a prepper commune of some sort with bunkers, Humvees, pack mules, and a complete off-grid sanctuary. I don't know. If that sounds good to you, hit me up in the comments over at our Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance on Facebook, because let's talk, right? There's always that opportunity. I want one
Absolutely.
so bad. I want.
So hey, before we end this, the last thing I wanted to bring up is, and I'm seeing this more and more, and I'm sure you guys will agree with me, are the words peace and safety. Right? That is everywhere, everywhere. And of course, we all know what that means, where that comes from, what that eventually will lead to destruction, right? I just see that everywhere. And I wonder how everything that's happening and these words are being used, and these individuals obviously know what they're doing. All the world's a stage. I'll keep saying that until the day I die. That they are fulfilling prophecy, yet they continue to, and I just don't understand. Maybe you could enlighten me on why this is so prevalent. And there are so many things like that that are popping up nowadays, that or currently, that are obvious to me, and maybe because I have the eyes to see, and I'm like you do as well, whereas others just do not see them.
It's true. One of the things when I talk to people about the scriptures is they're like, "Oh no, we're fine. Everything's great." If all that was true, then we would our church leaders would tell us. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's another psychological operation. The
Mm-hmm.
appeal to authority. If the authority didn't, if my wackadoo friend who has a podcast says it, it's not true. But if my leader said it, it's got to be true. I'm like, okay, good luck with that.
So the other thought I had that came up at the same time, the other words that I hear a lot is Antichrist. I hear Tucker Carlson talking about it. This Peter Thiel, he's teaching about it. It just absolutely amazes me the discussions that are going on about the Antichrist right now. And for people who actually probably are likely Antichrist themselves. But that's just, one of the many words I'm hearing right now.
Well, Second Thessalonians says that when they decry peace and safety, the destruction is imminent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's Second Thessalonians. Anyways, it's one of the Thessalonians.
And that made me think of another verse, 1 Corinthians 3:19. The wisdom of this world is foolishness with God.
Amen, dude.
And I try to live by that every day. I try and live by that. At least remember that, read that every single day.
That hits deep. The wisdom of this world is foolishness to God.
With God, yeah.
With God. It's funny because every time I tell God my plans, I feel like I hear a chuckle on the other side of that prayer. Like, good try. Nice idea, Scott, right? Oh, that's a bad idea, Scott. Like, I feel like the times that we're going into are the times we need to question everything.
Mm-hmm.
We've been dealing with MK Ultra for years, Project Mockingbird, right? We've been dealing with psyops all around us. We have to move forward with a critical mindset on everything. Question everything. And I know it takes more time. It takes more effort, right? But if you're not questioning it, you're allowing things to happen. Questioning it gives your mind the break to actually analyze and think critically, something that they don't teach in school anymore. So good luck. But if you can start thinking critically, then you can start formulating responses to fight off the psyops and to make a stand. Any final thoughts on tonight's podcast before we end it out?
Said what I had to.
I just think it's very important for us to remember to have the spirit of discernment and have a discerning mindset and spirit, because the things that we've been told, what do they say? You're going to need to find yourself a really good conspiracy theorist friend, because the next few years you're going to need them to guide and direct you, through what's going to happen. And conspiracy theory, whether you call it a conspiracy theory or a psyop, it's pretty close to the same dang thing. And so I just again, there's been what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and a conspiracy fact? About 6 months. And so just remember that as you're going out and listening to stuff and people saying things, there's one thing you can count on, and that's Jesus Christ. And there's probably second to that is you can count on your family and some good friends that you have, the community that you're building. Other than that, question, trust, but verify. Scott said it earlier, and I totally agree with that. And that's something that I've lived by, and it's helped a lot.
Well, thank you everybody for being part of the show tonight. We appreciate you, and definitely do your homework on all things. Get prepped. Stay ready-minded. Focus on yourself first. You got to make sure you get that oxygen mask on yourself when the plane's going down before you help your neighbor, right? Take care of your needs first, then your family, then move outward. Guys, we have a book that we wrote years ago and published even less time ago called The Ready Radius. You can get it over on our friendly neighborhood Amazonian site. Search Ready Radius. You can get a copy of it. It's a simple little structure of thinking and preparing and planning, utilizing the 1 is not, 2 is almost there, 3 is just right? But prioritizing your efforts in your preparedness and using what you have around you to your aid and to your benefit. Guys, thanks for tuning in instead of tuning out. Keep that head on a swivel. And in the famous words of Lloyd Christmas, we landed on the moon.